breaking news right now happening in Kensington. Federal agents are carrying out an operation right now in that neighborhood.
Earlier today, Boston City Council member Tanya Fernandez Anderson was arrested on federal public corruption charges.
Well, new at 11, 10 people are facing federal drug charges for an elaborate trafficking ring.
Happening right now, the FBI is announcing indictments against 20 individuals in a sweeping federal probe. We are here today to announce the arrest of law enforcement officers and coordinated raids that have shattered the image of regional security forever. At 3:14 a.m., under a blanket of sleet that turned the Minneapolis streets into a mirror of gray ice, 40 federal agents stood outside a nondescript plumbing warehouse in the North Loop. They had spent 6 months watching this building. They had tracked the white box trucks. They had logged the encrypted pings from the roof. But as the hydraulic ram hissed against the reinforced steel door, they realized that everything they knew about the Sinaloa cartel's presence in the Midwest was only a fraction of the reality. They didn't just hide the money. They hid the infrastructure. Federal agents in Minneapolis had finally found the bunker files, the blueprints for a cartel shadow state that was operating right beneath the feet of every citizen in the Twin Cities. This wasn't a distribution center, and it wasn't a simple stash house. It was an entry point into a parallel world. Beneath the oil-stained floorboards, hidden behind a false hydraulic lift, lay a staircase that descended 30 feet into the Minneapolis bedrock. What the FBI found in those files, the bunker files, would eventually expose a shadow state that had operated for over 4 years. This is not a story of a few corrupt cops. This is the narrative of an engineered infiltration. The cartel didn't just move through the city. They bought the ground it was built on. The breach was surgical. Flashbangs detonated in the stairwells. Agents in tactical black swept through hallways that looked like a professional corporate office. But as they moved deeper into the subterranean level, the air grew colder, and the smell of mildew and industrial plastic became overwhelming. The deeper they went, the more they realized the complexity of the engineering. This was level 3. A reinforced concrete vault designed to survive a direct military strike. Inside, row after row of industrial shelving held vacuum-sealed bricks of currency, stacked with the precision of a bank vault. The smell hit them first, that unmistakable scent of old paper, stagnant moisture, and something faintly chemical. The bills were damp, some fused together by years of being vacuum-sealed so tightly they had become solid bricks. But as the physical evidence was cataloged, the real payload was being extracted from a secure server room at the back of the vault. In a sterile room at the FBI's Minneapolis field office, forensic analysts began the grueling process of cracking the shadow state servers. They found a system of command and control that rivaled the federal government's own logistics. The Sinaloa cartel had established a secondary economy within the Midwest, using a code-named operation called Project Silver Fortress to manage their assets. The digital trail revealed over 60 residential properties purchased in cash through shell companies with no mortgages, no insurance, and no identifiable owners. These homes sat dark in quiet neighborhoods, lawns maintained by contract services, while inside their walls, billions of dollars were being sorted, cleaned, and prepared for transport. The investigation's breakthrough had come months earlier, when a Treasury Department analyst noticed a strange pattern in property transactions. A series of Nevada-based LLCs were buying high-value real estate in Minneapolis, Phoenix, and Dallas with zero debt. When agents cross-referenced these addresses with surveillance data, they found a white van that visited each location every Thursday at 11 p.m. They followed that van to the North Loop warehouse, and that's when the scope of the shadow state began to materialize. The cartel wasn't just storing money. They were leveraging it to buy influence. They owned car washes, construction firms, and import-export businesses that served as the perfect conduits for cleaning the cash before it was moved back across the border. The CEO of the primary front organization, a charismatic, fictionalized figure named Ahmed Khalid Osman, was the public face of this deception. He posed with senators and sat on boards of local nonprofits, all while his encrypted devices were coordinating the tactical movements of cash couriers across the country. But Osman was just a coordinator. The architect of the network was a man named David Ochoa, a fictionalized real estate investor who had no criminal record and no cartel tattoos. He was a businessman who understood tax law and property codes better than most government auditors. He built an empire of cash vaults by following the rules, paying property taxes on time, and waving at neighbors. The deeper forensic teams dug into level 3 of the bunker, the more they realized this wasn't just about financial storage. They found detailed surveillance logs of Minneapolis Police Department patrol routes, shift change times, and even the personal vehicle descriptions of federal prosecutors. The Shadow State had established its own intelligence wing. They weren't just watching the money, they were watching the people tasked with stopping them. They found blueprints of government buildings with entry and exit points highlighted in red, alongside encrypted communications discussing target hardening and operational evasion. This was target preparation on a scale that suggested a long-term plan for total regional dominance. As the raid teams continued their extraction, they uncovered a climate-controlled room adjacent to the main vault. Inside were 340 pounds of pure fentanyl, vacuum-sealed in bricks identical to the cash. The street value was over $40 million, but the lethal potential was far worse, enough to kill over 77 million people. It was sitting in a suburban home 3 miles from a high school, guarded by men with AR-15 rifles and instructions to destroy everything if the perimeter was ever breached. The realization hit the agents that this was no longer a financial crime. It was a mass casualty threat waiting to happen. The investigation then pivoted to a fictional youth leadership camp deep in the forests near Brainerd. Advertised as a place for cultural pride and teamwork, it was actually a combat training facility for the Shadow State's enforcement arm. When federal agents surrounded the compound at dawn, they found barracks stacked with tactical clothing, crates of encrypted radios, and night vision equipment. In a locked basement, they found dozens of AK pattern rifles and bomb-making components stored in labeled bins. They uncovered a simulation of a city street used for urban warfare drills, complete with target dummies dressed in law enforcement uniforms. This wasn't leadership training. It was preparation for an attack on the heartland. The scale of the corruption was finally traced back to a fictionalized governor, Vincent Harlow. He had championed the very organizations the cartel used as fronts, signing off on millions in state grants without a single audit. According to the bunker files, Harlow's personal attorney was a silent partner in the shell companies used to launder the stolen funds. Harlow wasn't just a compromised politician, he was an active architect of the system, receiving monthly wire transfers that totaled over $2 million. When federal marshals took him into custody at the state capitol, they didn't just arrest a man, they dismantled the highest level of protection the cartel had in the Midwest. But the Shadow State's reach extended far beyond the governor's mansion. Analysts found that the cartel had essentially built a parallel enforcement system. They had paid off city inspectors to look the other way when massive concrete vaults were being poured in residential basements. They had compromised senior sergeants in the Regional Narcotics Task Force to provide internal leaks on raid schedules. The bunker files contained a corrupted assets list, a payroll of judges, police officers, and port authorities who had turned the state's borders into a sieve for narcotics. Honest officers felt the sting of betrayal as their own commanders were led away in handcuffs, exposing a culture where the badge had been sold to the highest bidder. The investigation revealed that Minneapolis was merely the operational hub for a continental strategy. Project Silver Fortress wasn't just about Minnesota. It was about the entire I-35 and I-94 logistics corridors. The cartel used trucking contractors and fake green energy grants to move tons of narcotics per week without triggering a single alert. Shipping manifests were altered with the help of compromised customs brokers. Way stations were mysteriously shut down for maintenance, exactly when cartel convoys were scheduled to pass. They used migrant smuggling and human trafficking as a visual cover, knowing that law enforcement's attention would be diverted by the immediate human crisis, while the billion-dollar cash shipments moved in plain sight. The forensic accounting breakdown was even more terrifying. The cartel had integrated their dirty capital into the regional economy so deeply that a total seizure would have caused a local market collapse. They owned entire suburban blocks, commercial shopping centers, and heavy machinery fleets used to construct their subterranean vaults. They had infiltrated the local banking systems, using compromised tellers to facilitate daily bulk deposits that were never flagged to the IRS. The shadow state had become a parasitic organism, feeding off the state's legitimate infrastructure while slowly replacing it with a criminal foundation. The final catastrophic file discovered in the villain's plan revealed their endgame, Phase 3. The goal was to turn the state into a permanent, untouchable headquarters for the cartel, creating a shadow government that would shield their operations for decades to come. They were in the process of lobbying for free trade zones that they would control, providing them with legal immunity for their warehouses. They had redesigned the system not just for infiltration, but for a cartel future where the line between the government and the underworld was permanently erased. Blueprints for a private security academy were found, which would have trained an even larger second police force to protect cartel interests under the guise of private property security. The statewide eradication operation involved over 900 federal agents hitting 14 locations simultaneously. They seized luxury cars, confiscated cryptocurrency wallets, and recovered 47 illegal firearms. They arrested 63 individuals, including the CEO Ahmed Khalid Osman and 2 state legislators who had taken bribes to keep the audits away. The silent net had been torn apart in a 6-hour strike that caused more damage to the Sinaloa infrastructure than the last 6 years of border operations combined. In the command center, the red markers on the digital map began to disappear, but the tactical analysts knew this was only the beginning of a years-long cleanup effort. The human cost of this operation cannot be measured in seized assets alone. Every dollar in those safehouses came from addiction, from mothers who lost their sons to fentanyl overdoses, and families broken by the poison the cartel pushed into our streets. This is more than a financial seizure. It's a strike against a system that kills. It is a warning that the most dangerous infiltration build itself from within, using our own laws and our own trust as a weapon against us. The families who came to this country seeking safety were exploited by the very people who claimed to protect them, turned into covers for a transnational terror pipeline disguised as compassion. If you're still watching, hit that like button so more people understand the depth of this infiltration. Comment "Exposé" if you believe every property tied to this money should be seized to fund addiction recovery. Power hides in the silence and the shadows. But today, we are shining a light on the bunker files. This story is a warning that we must remain vigilant. This is Military Command. We are the watch on the wall. We will keep watching. We will keep exposing. And we will not let these networks rebuild in the darkness. The investigation into the bunker files revealed that the network had processed over $2.7 billion in just 12 months. The money arrived in duffel bags and trash bags, dirty and contaminated, to be sorted and prepared for its journey back across the border. The cartel had perfected the art of blending in, following every HOA rule and paying every property tax on time to ensure their neighbors never suspected the billions hidden behind those pristine suburban walls. But that silence is over now. The federal government has seized the master database, and the hunt for the remaining properties in Nevada, New Mexico, and Colorado has already begun. The shadow state has been exposed, and the battle for the heartland has entered a new phase. Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it hides behind smiles, handshakes, and the language of compassion. Sometimes it wears a suit and speaks at fundraisers while it arms the enemy. This story is a reminder that the most dangerous infiltration builds itself from within, using our own beliefs that people in authority deserve our trust. Don't let them stay silent. This is Military Command, and we are the watch on the wall. The struggle to reclaim the bedrock of the Midwest will take years, but the first stone has been turned and the files have been opened. We will keep hunting, we will keep documenting, and we will never stop until the last shadow is removed.